So what is financial planning for a business? Well, let's talk about that in this video right now. So you're probably wondering, like, what is financial planning for a business? What does it look like? How do you do it? Because everybody talks about retirement, personal financial planning, but what is it for a business? How can you create more profit, more freedom within your business through this kind of planning? Let's dive in. All right, so let's talk about this, because we always talk about planning for your personal finances, your retirement. People talk about budgeting, they talk about this and that. But the one thing is, I've noticed that a lot of business owners really don't know what's financial planning look like within a business. Like, how do you really plan for it? Because let's be honest, most people get into a business and they have this shorter term view of, I just want to have time freedom, money freedom, freedom to do what I want, be able to make more money even in a business, have my own control, that kind of thing. But the truth is that when you start to get into it for so many years, and I know I've been a business owner for almost a quarter of a century. Wow, that sounds old, doesn't it? But I've been in for a while. And so you get in that way and then you think, oh my goodness, like this is almost like having a job in so many ways. But it has all these other rules that go with it when it comes to dealing with your money. And so what are those things? Like, why do you need that kind of financial real planning inside of it? This is not like planning for retirement, although it could be planning for an exit. Maybe you're trying to figure out what happens next. What do I do in my business? Am I supposed to be doing this forever? Is there any hope? Like, do I want to sell it? Do I want to pass it on? Did you know that most businesses, when people die, the business dies with them? It just disappears because there's no real system in place. And so when you're looking at this, you got to really start planning, what is that I do with my money within my business so that my business can grow, but more importantly, the income and the profits I get from the business grow with it. All right, so here's the difference. Like, there's people talk about budgeting and then there's planning, right? Now, budgeting is one thing, and I know in business, like, budget is like the nasty little B word, I mean, not that one, but this one, right? Like that 6-letter B word, it's even worse, right? You have that budget and everybody hates talking about that, but that's what everybody says in corporate America and everything else. Well, you don't have to do that. What I like to use the word spending plan, right? I like to know that every dollar has a job, even if that money doesn't stay in my business. Every dollar has to have a responsibility, some sort of job that it does. Because if you don't give it a job, it's gonna run you, right? If you don't run your money, it's gonna run your life instead. You're gonna have that kind of, really feeling like you're in a trap here. And so what you wanna do is you wanna make sure that your business is in control, that your money is in control. And one of the number one reasons why businesses fail is because they don't have enough cash, right? So yes, there is a budgeting type aspect, but I like to use spending plan as that because I am using this money to be spent. Ideally, the money gets spent to be able to increase and grow that business so that it can grow profit. One thing you do not want to do is keep putting money away into something that doesn't grow. And we've all done it. If you've been in business long enough, you've tried strategies that completely bombed. It was a complete waste of money, 0% rate of return, or if anything, more like a negative 100% return because you spent the money and it never came back, right? You end up making nothing. We don't want that kind of thing. We want to make sure that it's working well. And you've got to have liquidity. And that's one thing I'll give importance as well. It's not just tracking your money. And be sure you track your money too. If you're going to be creating a spending plan, be sure you're tracking your money, I would say at minimum, at least twice a month, if not weekly. I know in our business, we do it weekly. And I don't just track my money, I even report what those numbers are to be accountable to the rest of my team. Now, some of you might think that's a little bit extreme. You might think that's a little scary. You don't want to share how much money the accounts or share how much money you're making in the business. But the truth is that your team is yoked with you, assuming you're not just a solopreneur, right? Even if you have other team members, like there's got to be other accountability. There's got to be eyeballs on it because what I've noticed is this: whatever I measure will grow. Whatever I measure will improve. And so if you want your business to grow and improve, especially be financially successful, you need to track that money. I use QuickBooks. I know some people use Xero, like Xero is Xero.com. Whatever you use, I guarantee your accountant will thank you. And here's the great thing, is that if you're tracking this on a weekly basis, you're keeping your numbers up to date on a weekly basis, guess what happens when it comes around tax time? Your numbers are done, right? You update 1 week at the new year and you're like, psh, that's it, done. I can send this on to the accountant January 1st if I wanted to and get that out of the way and not have to worry about it. Personal taxes, that's another issue, right? But at least with your business returns, it's so much easier to have that done because you gotta file for those taxes, right? You gotta know what you're doing there. So be aware that you wanna make sure that you are tracking your money on at least a twice a month basis, if not weekly. Now, I mentioned liquidity is a good thing of health. You gotta be liquid, you gotta have cash available. The number one reason why businesses fail is because they run out of cash. Now, this can happen one of two ways. One, you've got cash on hand and checking, savings, and things like that. Or two, you've got lines of credit. You've got, credit cards, you've got lines of credit through a bank, whatever it might be. At first, you're gonna need that cash, and you're gonna wanna hold that cash in your company. So if you're just starting out, be sure to get like 10, 20,000 eventually into an account that you don't spend. You just let it sit there. Why? Because eventually when you go to the banks for those lines of credit, they're gonna look at your account balances. Do they shrink? Do they grow? Is money just sitting there? Because the more that they see that there's not just profit in the business, but that there's cash available, the more likely they're going to give you more credit. And so I've built it up to where sometimes I'll have 20,000, even up to 40,000 with certain banks. And those banks eventually will want to give you lines of credit, even if it's with multiple banks. You can actually get multiple lines of credit to give you a little bit more safety. So if anything happens to that one line that you have with that bank, at least you have another one to back you up. Do not ever for 1 second think that having a credit card or a bank line of credit is your emergency fund. Do not believe that for 1 second. It's bonus, it's extra. You still need to have cash available in the business because of this. Banks at any time can always cut back on your lines of credit. They can always say, you know what, we're cutting this thing down, or we're gonna cancel your card or cancel this account, especially if you ever go into an economic recession. When things start to get a little bit crazy in the marketplace, banks like to get crazy too, right? They like, and not crazy in the good way. It's not the party way, it's the crazy, like I'm cutting these lines of credit out, we're getting rid of all of our risk, we're just gonna play it safe. They do the same thing, and if that's your only source of cash, you're gonna be in trouble. Those of you that were in 2020, if you were in business, you remember what happened. Some of you guys were non-essential businesses, had to shut down for 2 months. That's a lot. So if you're gonna have cash, be sure you've got at least 2 months of your expenses in your business every month. So if you're spending $30,000 a month in business, you better have at least $60,000 in a sitting account. If you're spending $100,000 a month, you're gonna need at least $200,000 sitting in the account. So now you can do that. Now you can definitely keep it in just simple savings or whatever with banks. You can also store money in infinite banking, which we got other YouTube videos talking about that, how you can have this tax-free high yield savings account that's even better than some of the other high yield savings accounts that you have with certain banks. So be sure to look for that. Now, ultimately, this is the big thing, is that it's always about profit, right? A great book I recommend is reading Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. Profit First talks about having different buckets. Make sure you're saving, you put money away for taxes, make sure you got money not budgeted, right? But we have a certain spending plan for certain money going to certain places. It might be going to payroll, some of it might go into marketing. I split mine up between operations, marketing, sales, even fulfillment and things like that. I make sure I have certain percentages that are earmarked for those things. And the great thing is this, is that if you can plan your life around profit, more money coming back home, that gives you more money to work with at home, so then you can actually increase your personal financial planning as well. And so that's why Profit First is a great book to read and to apply in your business. And that's the one big recommendation I give. Now, if you like this video, go ahead and like it, but also subscribe to our channel for more advice, not just for business, but also personal ways to create financial freedom and passive income today.